Hello and welcome to Just Keep Writing,
a podcast for writers
by writers
to keep you writing.
I'm Marshall.
I'm Nick.
I'm Brent.
And I'm Will.
All right. And the four of us are back together again with a new topic. Last time we talked about horror. This time, Nick is going to guide the crew through a talk about Antagonist. He's been very vague about it, I'll be honest. But I'm excited to see what he's got. So I'm throwing it to you, buddy.
He made a worksheet.
Yeah, no, he was very excited. I can tell. Yeah. So let's see what happens. Look, I'm ready.
I love good villains. Mm-hmm. I love a good antagonist. Mm-hmm. But really, when you come down to it, what makes a good antagonist? What is a good antagonist? So today I want to explore the creation and the possibilities of what an antagonist can be. So, little backstory. This is something I struggled with early on in my writing career, and feedback I was consistently getting until I understood that the antagonist is your main character, vice versa, right? You have to put just as much effort into that as you do your main character. And so that's why I wanted to tackle this one with you guys and leaving it vague on purpose, because I know some of y'all in this group will steal my recommendations and examples. So I want to get them out first.
That's fair.
Tell us, Daddy. Tell us, Daddy.
So I got my questions pulled up here. Yes, I will have a makeshift worksheet at the end of this as well that you guys can find in the show notes and online on our website. And it's not robust. Okay. If you really want an in-depth one, there's a Google search for a reason. I'm here to help with guidelines and best practices more than anything, and thoughts. So guys, any medium, any book, any series, any show, anything at all, who's your favorite villain of all time?
How did I know you were going to start with that?
Who wants to go first?
I want to go... Secretly, I want to go first because I know someone's going to maybe take it, but if it's all wide open, maybe mine's a little cliche. I don't know. Someone else want to go first?
I mean,
no,
I could
Marshall,
list 5.
You should go.
You could list 5? I mean, I have more than one, but he said all time.
All time. Who's the villain that you go to the most?
I know which one Marshall's going to pick. Marshall, you go first.
You know who I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Vader. I'm going to pick Darth Vader. And it's just because there's a complexity to the character, especially when even before we got all the other stuff, there were hints in the films, conversations about him, a fear about him that was so intriguing. You know what I mean? And a motivation there, like, who is this big of an asshole and why, right? And then the redemption arc on top of that really got me thinking. That's why I think I really like the prequel, sequel trilogies more than other folks, because I just felt like that kind of, it kind of solidified the origin story a little bit for me. You know what I mean? And I enjoyed seeing that. Sure, some of it was like 0 to 1,000, but at the same time, I don't know, someone who's an enslaved person that has been raised by not his, has to leave his family, all the stuff that's all these complexities, right? And again, even without that, just those standalone episode 4, 5, and 6, there's something about that character that keeps me coming back to putting him on the top of the list. I do have other ones. And then of course, when you dive into the animated stuff, like people were putting in the chat, Clone Wars and all that stuff, it gets even more nuanced. And I like that journey. And I think a good antagonist has to have a journey and a motivation that is believable. And also it makes sense for the story. And yes, Nick, I do understand what you're saying about him not being a villain either.
There is an argument that he's not a villain.
Is he not an antagonist, though?
Why? The question was, who's your all-time favorite villain?
Oh, stop it.
All right, Brent, you go.
Which, for the purposes of this conversation, those are interchangeable words right now.
Oh, thank you so much, Daddy.
Now they're interchangeable. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Oh, this is so hard because I love so many antagonists, but I think if I had to pick one, it would probably be Mr. Sinister from the X-Men. And the reason I think I choose him is because he, at least in, if you followed his history in the comics, it's like he's affected so much without ever being seen. When he finally was seen, it was like, wait, you're responsible for this, and this, and he's like silently moving through the background. I don't know. I think I've always loved the chess master character, antagonist, and he is like the epitome of that. And also, too, there's this, especially like after the Krakoan era, there's this like, you realize that like his callousness doesn't come from animosity. He just views everyone as materials. No one's a person to him. Everyone's just a material to be used for his own greater good. Everyone's a resource. In a way, it's like, I don't know, it's like capitalism. He's really kind of this perfect encapsulation of capitalism in a way too, that like no one's a person. Everyone's a resource to be mined and used for whatever greater purpose he perceives himself as pursuing.
I have to agree with that one. Sinister is a maniacal villain because sometimes his plans in line with the good guy, and I think that's what makes him so complex. So my favorite villain, I mean, that's really hard because I have a lot, but one of my favorite villains is Killmonger in Black Panther.
Yeah, he's up there too.
I think he is amazing. Nick's giving me the finger because he was probably going to pick that. Mine is Killmonger. And I would also say one of my other favorite villains would be, I mean, I don't like saying Magneto's a villain, but he started as a villain because he opposed Xavier so much. But he really, I mean, especially now in the comics, he's part of the X-Men. He is not perceived as a villain because they actually see he had a point. And I think that's what's tricky about Killmonger. There's a lot of things that Killmonger said that really...
Just wait for the next question. Just wait for the next question.
Okay, I'm done.
So, perfect answers, right? So Killmonger is one of my favorites, which actually leads to the next question, though. What are some series? So let's talk more specific book series now, or written format, if you will. What are some of the series out there where they have a villain that you would actually side with? I know that's a loaded question, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of time. So the reason I asked this is because of the influence of Killmonger, Darth Vader. There's certain backstories and things like that. Look at Magneto too, right? So he's a villain in the eyes of only certain people. The same can be said throughout the written format as well in so many different books and things like that on that one. So, Will, because you are self-proclaimed and rightfully so the most well-read here, what is the series where you would side with the villain?
I wouldn't say I'm the most well-read.
Okay, I will.
I would say I'm going to go back to comics for a minute. And I think I could see myself sometimes aligning myself with Amanda Waller from the DC universe. I think there's certain times I think she's right. That the metahumans could be dangerous. That we need to be policing them to a certain extent. I don't even like that word, but like making sure that they're not doing anything messed up. And I think book-wise, what I've read recently, I can't think anything off the top of my head, but I know there's one there. So who else has something?
I don't know if I might get in trouble for this one. Because there's not
I'm here for that. Let's do this.
No, I mean, not in trouble, but like Will was just saying something he's reading recently. Like I've been reading, I put it down for a little bit, but I'm over halfway through with the Expanse series, right? What I like about that series is the fact that between the three sides, I find myself, depending on I waffle back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm with Mars, man. Fuck these guys. You know what I mean? Like I find it fascinating, but I think the problem is with your question, Nick, is because you said, what villain would I side with? You know what I mean? And it's like, there's no villain necessarily. There's a interconnecting political bullshit going on, but then there's also the word just flew out of my head, the alien thing, which I think is kind of funny sometimes. But what's it called? Does anybody know?
Alien Covenant?
Oh no.
I just was the one that came out of the proto molecule, right?
Proto molecule, yeah. So like that, the entity, the thing behind all of that, like it's fascinating because they're like eating and consuming and moving through the universe, kind of like what you were saying earlier, Brent, where it's like, you know, they don't look at it as people really. It's like things to consume and move through and speak through. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's also kind of terrifying to put myself in that position too. So I'm in trouble because I didn't really answer the question, but I like stories where the villain isn't as clear and you can kind of bounce sides depending on the POV, depending on especially in a longer series like The Expanse, is like, okay, what side's being highlighted here in a sympathetic way that you might want to side with. You know what I mean? I might have something else later once other people go.
Okay, so this one's a little more, I guess, complex. So I have to explain myself, but honestly, the Yerks from Animorphs. And the reason I'm going to say that is not so much for what they ended up doing, but for what made them start what they did. This was basically, for those who don't know, this is basically an alien species that they existed as a slug and they had no ability to taste, no ability to like really see. They only I think they had some minor degree of touch basically. And they were a parasitic species. Now, what they ended up doing is that they ended up waging war across the galaxy because they did not want to be without these sensations and without these senses and without, these various things that they've never experienced before. Now, the reason I say I could side with them is because I can't imagine never knowing what smell and sight and these things taste like, and then being giving them, and then having the Andalite swoop in and be like, oh no, we're not giving you technology to help you experience that. That is against our laws, and you go back to your little pools and pits and live your life. When the Andalites had the technology, if they had wanted to, they could have given those people forms where they could have experienced all these sensations and all these things. Maybe have done something where we keep you in quarantine for 2 hours. You're permanently in this form now, but go about your existence. They could have done that. But instead the Andalites went, no, fuck off. You're not going to have that. And for me, at least, now that I'm a little older, I'm like, yeah, if I was a York, I'd be like, fuck you too. I'm not giving this up. Now, granted, and this is, I'm sure you'll probably talk about this later, Nick, where they went wrong is that they decided to take other sentient beings and take their willpower away from them. But I don't think the initial desire to want to be more than what they were was wrong.
That's a good one.
So, as you guys can see just from the first two questions, antagonists are complex. Antagonists can literally just be a viewpoint change. They have their own desires and wants and wills. So what really is an antagonist at the end of the day? So this is the bulk of what I really want to talk about, though, are the different types of antagonists. Now, feel free to add on to this one as I read off this list. But I have it categorized as 5 different types of antagonists, according to Nick. This is not gospel. This is not prophetic. Ain't shit. This is just.
I thought you were going to cite a source. You just said according to me.
Yeah, this is according to me and kind of what I break down and what I want to talk about, right? So the 5 types of antagonists that I'm going to go with here. We have the world, time, government and society. We have persons and people. I feel like I'm missing one already, or I can't count. but then mental health and illness.
Could you put that in the chat?
Yeah, I can put it in the chat here.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really solid breakdown.
Yeah, and that's 5, dude.
Yeah.
I told you I was prepared. The world, time, government and society, person or peoples, mental health and illness. So let's break that down though. And that's what I'm excited to talk to you guys about. I have an example for each one of these and I'm going to put it in the chat. So as we talk about one by one, let's not try to jump out of order here if we can help it.
What was the fourth one? You got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's in there with my current examples that I want to talk about. Okay. Did some research, right? So I can kind of back this up. So let's talk about the world being an antagonist. So for me, this is Mother Nature. This is natural. This is natural disasters, things like that, things that happen to the world that is causing a reaction for your main character. So the example that I have for this one is the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin. What are your guys' thoughts of having the world in the sense this can be things that happen to the world? The world is doing something such as natural disasters. Something crashes into the world that's natural, not alien. What are your guys' thoughts around that? And do you have any examples of things that you've read that would fit this type of description of an antagonist? Brent, you're excited. I can see it.
Well, I'll come back to the big example I had because it wasn't a book, but I'll comment on the first portion. So I think when you use the world as the antagonist, you can really challenge norms, and what actually makes us is usually, I think, the kind of stories you see where the world's the antagonist. So there's a classic one that I'm thinking of where if the world is the antagonist, and I think that's at least at first the world's the antagonist. Lord of the Flies kind of starts off that way, and I think that's my reading one. So I have another one, but I'll come back to reading first.
Yeah, we got to get through 5 of them. So Marshall, and then Will.
Will can go first.
All right, Will, then Marshall.
You go first, Marshall.
Oh boy.
Okay, round and round we go.
As far as the world, I'm loosely interpreting this too, because when the world is the antagonist, I think of that as the environment making the characters change in some way, right? Would that be an okay thing to say?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you've read the Children of Time series by Adrian Tchaikovsky, I don't know if anybody's read that. It's insane. So obviously it starts off with generation ships and this idea that we're going to put monkeys on another planet and start humanity again, right? But because of the environments they land in and some other circumstances, where they land dictates what actually happens. So this is a minor spoiler. In the first book, instead of the monkeys, when they come to check on them, basically, and I'm leaving this loose because there's way more nuance in this, but when they come to check on it, it's actually spiders. So there's you're getting a story through the POV of these spiders, and the world that they create because of the world that they're on is the reason the book exists the way it is. It's fucking brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And he does something even more crazy with the second book. I don't want to say the animal, but it's also animal related and it's amazing. But that's kind of how I look at the characters have to change, and our viewpoint as the reader in that circumstance changes because of the worlds involved and the environments at play and what has to survive. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really a cool way to look at what you're saying, Nick, as far as the world being an antagonist.
I love it.
I was actually I was gonna say I was gonna give 2 examples. Both of them are a movie, but one of them started as a book, and it's The Ruins by Scott Smith, where it's literally the jungle, the ruins of this place in Mexico is attacking the group of people who are visiting. And then I would also say Jaws is a great example of the world or environment attacking people, and then how it plays off psychologically and also physical. So both of them are examples of horror in different ways. And I think horror is a really great way to easily look at the world kind of going after you and being an antagonist. Nature.
I love it. Another one to note that I did mark down, which actually could fit into two categories, is Devon Sanders' Kingdom Masters series as well. He does something very creative when it comes to music that causes the world to change in shape against the main character a little bit there. That's all I'll say on that one. You guys should go read it. Devon's amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's
please
underrated.
go read that one. Oh, it's
People
very
need to
underrated.
discover it.
So the second one that I have is time. This one's a little bit more complicated though, because it is it a race against time? Is it you got to accomplish something before death? I look at the time traveler's wife, right? Like, can't be viewed as an antagonist in there because they only have so long and they don't know when. So I find this one to be the most fascinating, but also very genre specific. I think this one fits the best when it's a race against time to solve a crime, murders, mystery, thrillers, things like that, where there is a time limit in order to get something done and achieve something.
Speed.
Yeah, speed. Good. I like that one. I did. So I don't think I've finished this one, but TJ Klune, the Cerulean Sea, is an example of this one. That I'll provide. Again, I did some light research. I haven't finished this one, but
Will's face
seems
is
to be a common theme. Will saying no, and look again. This is according to Nick, who will be corrected by Will.
Wait, are you saying time as in? I understand why you picked the Cerulean Sea for time. Then. Okay, never mind.
Time, like it's a very open thing, right?
It is, yeah. But in that book, it's like the main character is in a race against time from the people who are overseeing the orphanage, and there's time is ticking for him to give the report, to give feedback, but also what's going to happen to the orphanage. So there is this nebulous type of way of like, the clock is ticking.
Mm-hmm. Marshall?
I was thinking too, like, I get, like, I love the example, speed, race against time, heists, things like that, where time's a factor. I like the idea of time, the passage of time and the constraint of time being a factor as well. Like, this is how you use the time war. Like the idea of using time in communication to show these characters' feelings for each other was really well done. Things like anytime you have a story where time is forgotten, like I was going to use this example for the other one, but like Silo, I didn't read the books, but I did watch the show. I don't know if anybody's read the books or watched the show, but the fact that humanity doesn't have access to their history, and Attack on Titan does this as well, like where it's like people are trying to figure out the time that they missed, I think is another kind of way to play with time as an antagonist, because it's plaguing the characters because they don't have control over parts of their life in some way, or they have to manipulate or work around a time constraint in order to do a thing. I think is another way to look at it, rather than just, the race against time, like playing with time and how it works against the characters. I think is what is fun. It was really makes for a really fun story, and tragic stories too.
And kind of what you're saying, like, so the Marvel series, right, where everyone got basically turned to sand and they had to come back, right, and restart their lives. You know what I mean? Like, so that's another concept of time. You lost time. You didn't feel like anything happened, but everything around you changed, right? So that's another example that I feel like ties into what you're saying, Brent.
So I have two examples. I'm thinking of with this first example, I'm gonna say Liza the Ajungo And the reason I say that is because in that series, it's time as history, and history is in the way the enemy, because it's about the interpretation of history and who gets to control that and weaponize that history. And a reason I say time with that one too is because the second book in the series takes place 500 years after the first, so you really get an exploration of like, okay, what is the truth, and is the truth actually good? And if it's not the truth, sometimes is the world better served by a lie? And it's just is a very interesting exploration. And I haven't read the third one in the series yet, but the third one in the series also takes place 500 years after the second one. So there's a lot of history as a weapon, I guess. So in that interpretation of time. My second one would be Welcome to Forever by Nathan Tavares, where it's time is the enemy because your memories can't be trusted. And your memories are scattered and your memories are broken, and you're trying to piece together your life. And in the book, basically, the two main characters, they're husbands, and they're both trying to kind of like figure out their lives, and they're piecing together these various timelines of having met each other. And like, so it's kind of like your memory is almost the enemy, and the lack of having the full picture of who you were as a person. And there's a lot of exploration about like, well, are you just your memories, or is there some core part of you that is who you are? And it's a lot. It has some Altered Carbon vibes to it, but it's definitely more focused on like the memory aspect.
Will?
I would also say like Octavia Butler's Kindred. That is not just about time itself, but time travel. And then when that character's traveling back. Another great one for everyone to read is The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley. That definitely plays with time, and you definitely don't know. There's these hints about like what's going on, but it's not until the end that you actually like get the explanation. And I think what's great about that book, which she even said was very hard to write, putting everything together. I mean, putting slots of these time frames in for the soldiers, and it still felt like a mystery. I wasn't lost in it, because sometimes with those things you can feel a little lost. But that's a good one about time.
Perfect. Thank you guys for all the examples so far. So we are halfway through the episode.
Anytime, Daddy.
Keeping track of time here. So the next one up is government and societies. I think this is one of the more ones that we're super familiar with, of one person standing up against a government, right? So think Hunger Games, Divergent, things like that, right? So this is where I say Magneto is a great villain, because he's standing up against a government, right? And from the perspective of the government, he's the bad guy. But he's complex because really he's fighting for human rights. So let's keep this one a little bit shorter, because I do feel like this is going to be one of the more common ones. And my next one I do want to go more in depth about, with good and bad examples. So government or society as an antagonist, what are some recommendations for this that people can read and discuss about? I'll go first on this one if you want.
I mean, I have examples. I just didn't. As far as other recommendations besides something I've said, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, oh man, and now I just drew a blank on the DM name. They made a movie out of it. It's a society where the Uglies or something like that, I think is the name of the movie on Netflix, but it was a book series first. Yeah. So now I got to look it up. And
the Uglies.
Yeah.
It's by
So
Scott Westerfeld. It's a book about fitting in and visuals and everything. So
yeah,
it's an amazing
Dying at
series.
the name.
it's literally called Uglies on Netflix. Go look it up.
Oh,
But
no.
however, this is a society. Once you come of age, you pick your perfect face, perfect body, what you look like, and you have to fit in. And you're never not part of that. You're banished, and it's rising up against that. There's actually Cassandra Westlake has a work in progress that tackles this as well on a different front altogether. Not yet released. Got to plug her in though because I love her. And we'll eventually get her on the show to talk about that one. But think about what are some books that you have where someone's standing up against society or a government in a series that you love.
Does it have to be a series?
No.
Okay. My one of my favorite books, and I know I've said on the show before, is 1984, but mostly it's because the society is so fucked that the main character thinks that he's fighting against it, but really he's fucked. And I think it's a brilliant way of talking about how some societies that have been allowed, or governments that have been allowed to persist for too long, make the people even have a contingency plan for people who think that they can fight back. And I think it's just really well done considering how old the book is. But I think government, I mean, just go back to even the Star Wars example. I mean, there's so many different things in my head as far as governments that are screwed that people have to fight up against, right? And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, my best recommendation is to find the ones that are in the gray area a little bit. Like, kind of The Expanse was something I was talking about earlier. I'm trying to come up with something that I haven't talked about already, but the government.
You need to bring up one of your favorite science fiction authors.
What am I forgetting?
Scalzi,
dude.
Yeah.
The Interdependency series is a very good example of this.
No, yeah, and I appreciate you getting me out of my 3 examples that I've said over and over. Yeah, but like that series alone, like this idea of, I don't know, the Old Man's War is the same thing. It's like there's a machine involved, you know what I mean? And you're trying to figure out, the characters are trying to figure out what their place in the machine, and is there a way to break the machine, right? And that's what I kind of like about Scalzi's work when he does these big, these big epics, is that there's a lot of nuance to government, and there's a lot of ways to run people, and these characters have to figure out how to navigate. And I think that's not only good world building, but also a good way of warning us against letting our governments just get fucked. You know what I mean?
No, I like that. Brent, do you have an example that you want to share?
Yes, this one's actually this one's not out yet, so this is my way of promoting it. So I've never seen a book do what this book has done in terms of like character versus society. So the book I'm talking about is Year of the Mer. It's by L.D. Lewis. So in this, usually when you see stories where it's like person versus society, usually like the government's actually pretty messed up and they're corrupt and they deserve to like go down. This is the first book I ever read where I'm like, no, you guys don't deserve a good government. You're bigoted fucking idiots, and you have and everything you have coming to you from this woman, you deserved it because you all are a bunch of asinine bigots who give in to your worst impulses, and you don't recognize the fact that you actually have a good government in front of you, and you're letting your bigotry tear it down. Which, damn, that actually. Yeah, so
I think you just found a good protagonist in that one.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. And that's the thing is like this. I won't even say the main character of this book is entirely likable because she makes some awful choices. But this is the first time I've ever read a book where usually like when you have like the kind of gray area noble or the gray area queen or king, you're kind of like, ugh, that was kind of fucked up. But this is the first time I've ever read one where I was kind of like, no, you all you people deserve it. You're all awful people, and you've chosen to be bigots, and you've chosen to like give into your worst impulses, and you kind of have this coming.
So I like it.
You kind of have this coming.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, The Blood Trials by Nia Davenport. I think
That
that's
is
a really
such a
great.
good one.
I know. Yeah, I think that duology does a really great job. A lot of things, because there's a lot of things about intersectionality that really dwells through the book, really powerful. Like there's levels
Yeah.
of racism or oppression, and I think that really mirrors, like, obviously our real world.
Yeah. No, highly recommend that one. If you haven't picked it up by now, please do. Okay, so let's move on here. Okay, this is the fun one for me. It might take a little bit longer than the others because this is more of a discussion than per se recommendations, but a person or people's. So my example for this one is going to be The Legend Motorcycle by Tracy Deonn. It's very complex, but throughout this series, you don't know in the first one, but you do figure it out later, like who the main antagonist is in this series. And what I think Tracy does very well is giving this antagonist a reason to be doing what they're doing. And I want to emphasize kind of that point when it comes to a person or people, because of the feedback I received as kind of like a younger writer, right? An antagonist who's evil just to be evil and there's no rhyme or reason behind it and they don't have motive is boring. So in that concept and in that space, right? Okay, well, like whatever. Okay.
What are we arguing about?
In that space, though, let's talk about some good antagonists from something you've read or even something you watched that you felt like had a complex motivation to be doing what they're doing. Whether you agreed with it or not, they had a reason behind and conviction behind what they wanted to do. I'll start first on this one, give you guys some time to think. So I've got probably one of my favorite series too, outside of Tracy Deonn, is going to be by Philip C. Quintrell, the Echoes of Fate saga. It's a 3-series trilogy that you don't find out to the very last book that this one person has influenced all 9 books and all the other antagonists through those books, because he was a slave at one point and wrote his own prophecy that influenced the rest of the world for centuries. Very intriguing back end for me. Very intriguing, like, oh shit, like he wasn't supposed to do this, but he found a way and he had a reason to reset society to the way that he wanted it to. Your guys' examples.
I guess if I had to give one, I would say Holland from the Conjuring of Light series, or Shades of Magic series. Sorry, Holland. He had every reason to want to do what he did to Kel and all of them. Like his world was abandoned. Like Red London got to sit all pretty and like then be all decadent and have their little queer bisexual prince who got to prancy around and be everything, while Holland's people were basically stuck on the front lines of dealing with this creeping enemy. They got abandoned. And I think Holland had every right to be pissed off about it. And actually, I love that series, don't get me wrong. So this is not a critique, but just something I wish I would have seen more. I think it would have been interesting to see like Red London held to account a little bit more for the fact that they did just abandon the other Londons to kind of like deal with this thing on their own.
Did you read The Threads of Power?
I haven't yet. So does it deal with that? Ooh, okay. You're gonna make me want to read because I've been like, it's one of those things where it's like, like you have a little treat, and it's like I'm like saving it for myself as a little treat. But if it does deal with that, you're gonna make me move it up.
It's interesting what Victoria's doing in that book for sure. I don't want to say anything else.
Okay. So I am going to interject and say we are at a time limit. And I have like 4 more questions to get through.
Well, we might not get through them all today, Nick. So what's the question again?
Oh my God. Marshall, do you have an answer?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about, well, you want to know what antagonists that we think had good motivations, right?
I mean, loosely, like, give me an example of a good antagonist that is either a singular person or a small group of peoples. And if you don't have one, that's fine too. Like, let me
No,
just
I'm
say
just
that.
trying to
Like,
think.
you don't have to have one. This is all off the cuff for you guys.
No, I do. I mean, to be fair, I had one and then it went out of my head. I wanted to think about. I was trying to think about this in a little bit of a different way. I don't know. Part of me wants to say Baron Zemo, a little bit
Oh,
from
yeah.
because it's kind of like the Killmonger thing where it's like, I get it, dude. Like, I get you're pissed off and I get like you've been fucked over and you want revenge. Like, that all makes sense to me. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that. But like, but as far as groups go, I can't help but think of rebellions. But then are we putting them? They're not necessarily antagonists because if we're following them, they're the protagonists, right? But like,
Correct.
I don't know. I think that.
But in the same breath, though, a rebellion could be an antagonist, depending on what viewpoint you're looking at, right?
I'm thinking about it like Rogue One not Rogue One. Andor, for example, right? Like we're following these characters, but like the rebellion is the fighting against the establishment, right? Fighting against that government, that empire, right? And I think that's kind of the fun of following people that are bucking against the system too. You know what I mean?
Well, and also I'll toss this one your way. R.A. Salvatore.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does antagonist pretty good.
He does. Jarlaxle is one of my favorites.
Jarlax is actually on the side of villains I would side with and hang out with.
Oh yeah, Artemis and Trary though, I would go have multiple beers with Artemis and Trary. You know what I mean? And that's why I like his stuff. And I don't bring up R.A. Salvatore that often anymore because people are like, you always talk about him. But
I love him.
But there's something about I do. But like the part of the love of those characters are I do love the antagonists. Eventually they do have an arc and they come around and they become more pro-taggy later. But like in the beginning, I loved Artemis when he was an asshole killing people left and right. You know what I mean?
That's the whole reason I loved him. So
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
Will?
Lestat.
See,
that's a good one too.
I think
this is why we have you.
I think Lestat
he says one word, the whole room goes,
Yeah, I think Lestat is such a great and beautiful character, especially with the way that Anne Rice reveals him book by book. Because you definitely, I mean, I remember reading Interview with the Vampire, and I read that book when I was a kid, and I just kept thinking like, oh, he's a jerk. And then I read Vampire Lestat, and at first I like had a lot of like empathy for him, and then I was just like, oh, you're so full of yourself. And then I read Queen of the Damned, and then I was like, oh, I don't know what. I like loved to hate him, but then I liked him. Then he had some good points. And then I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about him. And then when Memnoch the Devil came out, that's when you start seeing a different side of Lestat, I think, in that book. And I think you really, and this could also be with age. Right, because I was reading those books as I was getting older, and they were already out, everyone. So it's not like I aged with them. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. Okay,
I mean, you are 428.
Yeah, but just want to throw that out there. But then when I read Memnoch the Devil, I think this was at a time too that I was questioning how I was raised of being Catholic, and then also, and I think Anne Rice was kind of like the perfect person because she was Catholic and there was a lot of homoeroticism in her books. And I think this is why I loved those books so much, because it was being a vampire. Was it evil? And where was the humanity amongst these immortals? And I found that and I still do. I think there's a lot of things to love about Anne Rice. And the complexities that she built into those characters. Yeah, so Lestat for sure, 100%.
I love that. I love that. Give it a read, everyone. Give it a read. Okay, so down in the chat, I put our next question, not our final question. So, talking about the different type of antagonists and kind of like those building blocks and examples of things that we're pulling out, what we like and what we don't like. What are 3 things that you would recommend to our listeners that they need to consider when writing an antagonist? Now, I will go first on this one because I pre-written this one out and you guys didn't have time, so I want to give you a little bit of space to think on this one. Yes, Marshall?
Do we all need 3, or are we coming up with 3 as a group?
Either or, I don't care. But I'm going to give my 3 because those are already prepared, and we can either discuss those 3 real quick, or you guys can come up with a couple of your own and we can add it into the show notes. So the 3 that I have, one is they have to have a believable motivation other than just being evil. I already talked about this earlier, but their motivation needs to be, and their conviction, if you will, to what they're doing needs to be believable. Otherwise, you're evil just to be evil, or doing bad things just to be doing bad things. Like, it's not very fun at the end of the day, and it's going to level up your writing in a different way to those that you probably are already reading that are in the published space and things like that. The second one that I have, I don't know if anyone's going to agree with this one, but you have to actually plot out the antagonist plan to win. And when you do that, you now can then insert your protagonist to how they are going to stop them.
I like that.
So it's not backwards plotting, but it is laying out the other side's plan and what their plan is, how they're going to accomplish it, and then how you are going to get your main character, your protagonist, to get through there and disrupt that plan. The third one that I have is they need to have agency within their own story. The ability to control something that the main character wants. So, and I say this in another way of saying the antagonist has to be able to influence the main character in some way to make them cross paths. Those are my 3. This is craft writing according to Nick. What, just for, purposes here, what other considerations to writing antagonists would you guys have? Will, I saw you first, and then Marshall.
Marshall can go first.
No, it's okay. kind of a mashup, I think, maybe even of Nick's. So, like, if you have something that's not on Nick's list, go, Will.
Yeah, I do. So in my novella that I'm writing currently, I think of ideology, childhood, and the exchange of goods. How do you, for ideology, it's like, what are these values that they're bringing to the table for my antagonist? What was their childhood like, right? And the exchange of goods, meaning, how do they get educated? How do they get food, weapons, housing? I think those are things I really look at, because if we look at the way our society is, I think that is really playing into a lot of horrible things that are happening now.
Yeah, agreed. Marshall?
I only have 2, sort of.
Okay.
And I want to, and part of it, the way I'm phrasing this, just I think enhances a couple things that you already said, Nick. I like to. I've been asking myself, could they be the protagonist? You know what I mean? Like, could they? Are they? And I think this goes to what you were saying too. Is like, what is their motivation? What is driving them? Are they interesting enough? You know what I mean? To be the counter to the protagonist. That also means the protagonist has to be compelling as well. Otherwise, sometimes I find like I like the villains or the antagonists more. You know what I mean? Because they have more. I'm not saying I root for them, but I like them more. You know what I mean? And And then the other thing, this is just kind of random, I was just thinking about while Will was talking, is what do their minions look like? What do their associates look like? What are the people working for them? What's their motivation to help this person? You know what I mean? Like we always think about like Lord of the Rings, you got, Sauron there and he's got hordes behind him. Like, what's in it for those fucking guys? You know what I mean? I always try to think like, I want even like the side character of the antagonist to have some reason for being there outside of like, this is my boy. You know what I mean? Like, is there something that they're offering to in I don't know, in payment even, or in power, if that person wins? You know what I mean? And I like what you said about their path to winning, Nick, because that's something you have to think about. If that's the case, what is the minion's path to winning as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I do basically what I'm trying to drive with that one is what are the stakes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
Brent.
So, one thing I like to do with antagonists is I like to think in the negative in some respects. So I like to think about what won't they do to get their goal? Like, what is their line in the sand where they're like, okay, I'm not going to do this? Because I think when you think about what a character won't do, that gives you a certain amount of like, that helps you build depth, I think, because like, if this person won't, if their red line is I'm not going to kill this person, then everything, they have to build their victory around that red line in the sand. So I think that I find that to be useful. Another thing I like to do is think about what stories does the antagonist tell themselves to justify what they're doing. So in the example of Magneto, his story is, I survived the Holocaust. I will never, ever let that happen again. And that story drives him through everything that he does. Or you have the example of, just to keep it with X-Men, Apocalypse, the story of him having to survive in the desert and become this warrior. And it drives everything that he does, that the strongest survive and only the strong can survive. And it pushes him forward. So I like to think about that. What is the story or stories that antagonist has told themselves that justifies what they want? And I'll leave that to something that we got.
No, I love that. So just for notes as well, I do, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we covered mental health and illness as an antagonist on that one. Mm-hmm. I'll drop that on a blog post because I think those are very specific.
Part 2 is maybe needed.
Yeah, we could also do another episode easily.
We could, but we'll post our considerations and writing an antagonist in the bottom. Maybe we'll revisit. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But I do have one final question for the group here. What keeps you just writing villains?
They've always been my favorite characters in stories. Like, I mean, there's a reason I gravitate towards the anti-hero / villains in Star Wars and all those examples I gave. Like, I write them because I know that really technically maybe they can't win, but I'm still want to root for them because they have a reason to do what they're doing as well. I don't know. And I think it just makes for a really nuanced, really fun story.
Will?
It lets me tap into a darker side of myself.
We all knew that. Give us a reason we don't know. Right?
I think one of the greatest dangers of being a person is when you start to label yourself as good, I think. And I think antagonists, a good antagonist, holds a reflection up to that and reminds you that, yeah, you're not that far off from this person that you're looking at as as wrong or as the villain or as the monster. And usually, I mean, there's a reason that saying exists: the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think the power of a good antagonist is that it does remind us that, don't be so quick to think you're completely justified in the way you exist and the way you move through the world.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And this has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing. You can find us at justkeepwriting.org. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to reach out to any of us on our social medias, and please jump in our Just Keep Writing Discord channel. Links to all of that is in the show notes. Lastly, please support our show by going to patreon.com/justkeepwriting. We offer daily writing prompts, early access to podcast episodes, and much more. Thanks for listening, and just keep writing.